When my ex-wife called to tell me she was marrying a millionaire and that our kids would finally have a real father, I thought that was rock bottom. But 24 hours later, I discovered my own family had stolen $100 million from me, and they'd been hiding it for 20 years. My name is Daniel Harwick. I'm 42 years old, and until last week, I was just another construction foreman in Queens, breaking my back laying foundations for buildings I'd never afford to live in. You probably passed me on the street 100 times without looking twice. Work boots covered in concrete dust, pickup truck with a cracked windshield, coffee from a bodega because Starbucks was for people with better jobs. That was me. The invisible man who built your city. My ex-wife Veronica used to be a dental hygienist with a smile that could stop traffic. Now she's engaged to Preston Blackwood, who owns half of Manhattan's commercial real estate. My kids, Meredith and Trevor, 14 and 11, think their future stepfather hung the moon because he lets them ride in his helicopter and bought them phones that cost more than my monthly rent. But here's what nobody knew, including me. My grandfather, Theodore Harwick, who everyone called Teddy, didn't just leave me his pocket watch and a box of old photographs when he died 20 years ago. He left me his entire manufacturing empire, a fortune worth $100 million, and ownership of Harwick Industries. My parents, Eleanor and Gordon Harwick, along with my uncle Raymond, hid it from me. They forged documents, lied to lawyers, and even declared me legally dead to keep me from claiming what was mine. The really sick part? While I was working double shifts to make child support payments, sleeping in my truck between jobs, and watching my marriage fall apart because I couldn't provide the life Veronica wanted, my father was living off money he embezzled from my inheritance. $3 million over 20 years, funding his golf club memberships and cruise vacations while I ate ramen noodles for dinner. And Preston Blackwood, the man who swooped in to marry my ex-wife and play daddy to my children. He knew exactly who I was. His father had been trying to take over Harwick Industries for decades. When he couldn't buy it, Preston decided to marry into it by getting to my children, the only other living heirs to my grandfather's fortune. This is the story of how I went from being a nobody to reclaiming everything that was stolen from me. It's about learning that the people who should protect you can betray you worse than any enemy. And it's about discovering that sometimes, just sometimes, justice shows up 20 years late, wearing work boots and carrying a briefcase with your name on it. Friday evenings were sacred in my world. 6:30 sharp, I'd clear the blueprints off my kitchen table, prop my laptop against a stack of construction manuals, and wait for my kids to call. My apartment in Queens wasn't much to look at. 2 bedrooms, windows that faced a brick wall, radiator that clanged like a ghost was trapped inside. But for those 30 minutes every week, it became the center of my universe. I was stirring instant coffee when the video call came through 5 minutes early. That should have been my first warning. Veronica was never early for anything during our 12 years of marriage. "Hey, Dad." Meredith's face filled the screen, her blonde hair pulled back in the same ponytail style I used to do for her before school. "Guess what? We have something huge to tell you." Trevor squeezed into frame, practically bouncing. "Mom said we could tell you first." My chest tightened with that familiar mix of love and longing. "What's going on, buddy? Did you make the travel team?" "Better," Trevor said. Then Veronica's manicured hand pulled him back. She positioned herself center screen, and that's when I saw it. The diamond on her finger was the size of a marble, catching the light from what looked like a crystal chandelier behind her, not the apartment I'd been sending checks to help maintain. "Daniel, we need to talk about the custody arrangement." Her voice had that rehearsed quality, like she'd practiced this speech in the mirror. "Preston and I are getting married next month, and the kids will be moving into his penthouse on the Upper East Side." The coffee mug stopped halfway to my lips. "Wait, what? Who's Preston?" "Preston Blackwood. We've been dating for 8 months." She said it casually, like I should have known, Like I hadn't spent 8 months hearing nothing about this man who was suddenly going to be living with my children. He's been wonderful with Meredith and Trevor. Haven't you, sweetheart? A deep voice came from off-screen. Let's show him the place, darling. The camera swung around, and my cramped kitchen suddenly felt smaller. They were standing in a living room that belonged in a magazine. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooked Central Park. The furniture was all white leather and chrome, the kind you'd be afraid to sit on. "Dad, you should see this place." Meredith grabbed the phone, spinning to show me more. "It has an elevator inside the apartment. Like, inside. And my room is bigger than our whole old apartment." "There's a pool on the roof," Trevor added, his excitement killing me by degrees. "And a home theater, and Preston has a driver who takes us anywhere we want." I forced myself to smile. "That sounds amazing, guys, really amazing." Veronica took the phone back, and now Preston was beside her. 51 years old according to the quick Google search I was doing while they talked. Salt and pepper hair, tennis tan, the kind of square jaw that belonged on Currency. His suit probably cost more than my truck. "Daniel," he said, extending his hand toward the camera like we could somehow shake on this. "I want you to know, I'm not trying to replace you. The children are lucky to have such a dedicated father. Dedicated. That's what rich people called you when you were broke but still showed up. They'll have opportunities now, Daniel," Veronica continued, her hand on Preston's chest like she was displaying a prize. "Real opportunities. The kind a real father provides. Preston's already talking about private schools in Switzerland, European vacations, trust funds that'll set them up for life." The words hit exactly where she aimed them. "I am their real father, Veronica." She laughed, that dismissive little sound I remembered from every fight about money we'd ever had. "You're a construction worker who can barely afford their soccer cleats. Last month you had to split the payment for Trevor's uniform into 2 checks. Preston bought him a signed Mickey Mantle baseball collection worth more than your annual salary. Just be happy for them." "Mom," Meredith said quietly, uncomfortable with the cruelty even if she didn't fully understand it. "It's okay, Mer," I said, keeping my voice steady for her sake. "Your mom's right that Preston can give you things I can't." "But Dad," Trevor started. "Hey, we still have our weekend next week, right? I was thinking we could hit Coney Island, ride the cyclone until we're sick." "Actually," Preston interjected, "we're taking them to Martha's Vineyard next weekend, sailing lessons, but the weekend after, certainly." After they hung up, I sat alone at my kitchen table, staring at the black screen of my laptop. The photo tucked into its case showed the 3 of us at Coney Island last summer, Trevor with ice cream on his nose, Meredith making bunny ears behind my head, all of us sunburned and laughing. Our last real vacation together. 7 nights at a motel near the beach, eating pizza on the boardwalk. Building sandcastles like they were still little kids who thought their dad could build anything. Now, they'd have Swiss boarding schools and sailing lessons. And I'd have alternate weekends, when Preston wasn't taking them somewhere better. The next morning arrived with gray skies and the kind of persistent drizzle that made construction work impossible. My foreman called the day off by 6 a.m., which meant I had time for something I'd been putting off for 3 years, cleaning out my childhood bedroom in my parents' house in Westchester. The drive up took 40 minutes, each mile taking me further from the city's concrete and closer to the tree-lined streets where I'd grown up. The colonial house looked exactly the same. White siding, black shutters, my mother's garden gnome standing guard by the walkway. Some things never changed, even when everything else in your life fell apart. My father Gordon answered the door in his Saturday uniform, khakis and a polo shirt from the country club he couldn't really afford anymore since retirement. Finally, getting around to this, his greeting was classic Gordon Harwick. No hello, just immediate criticism. "Your mother's been asking for years. Good to see you too, Dad." Eleanor appeared from the kitchen, wiping her hands on her apron. She'd aged more gently than my father, her gray hair still styled weekly at the same salon she'd gone to for 30 years. "Daniel, I wasn't expecting you today. Have you eaten? I can make eggs." "I'm fine, Mom. Just want to get the room cleared out so you can have your craft space." She exchanged a quick glance with Gordon that I almost missed. "There's no rush, sweetheart." Really. But I was already heading up the narrow staircase, each step creaking in the exact same spots I remembered from sneaking in past curfew in high school. My old bedroom was a time capsule. Trophies from Little League, a Nirvana poster, textbooks from the college I'd dropped out of when Veronica got pregnant. I started with the closet, pulling out boxes that hadn't been touched in decades. Report cards showing straight A's until senior year of college, when Grandfather Teddy died suddenly of a heart attack and everything went sideways. Photos of him teaching me to fish at his cabin upstate, his patient hands showing me how to tie the hook. "Daniel," my mother called from the bottom of the stairs, "I need to tell you something about the Blackwood family. Preston's father and your grandfather had business dealings years ago." I walked to the top of the stairs. "What kind of dealings?" "Nothing good came of it. Just stay away from that man. Your grandfather never trusted the Blackwoods." "Bit late for that, Mom. He's marrying Veronica next month." Her face went pale. "What? No, Daniel, you don't understand. The Blackwoods tried to destroy your grandfather's business. They're dangerous people." Before I could ask more, she hurried back to the kitchen. I returned to the bedroom and started moving the heavy oak dresser that had been mine since childhood. The thing weighed a ton, and as I struggled to shift it, the baseboard behind it came loose. There was a hidden panel in the wall. My heart started racing for reasons I couldn't explain. I pulled the panel free and found a space between the studs, clearly carved out intentionally. Inside sat a leather briefcase, butter soft despite its age, with gold lettering engraved on the front. Daniel Theodore Harwick. My full name, the one Grandfather Teddy had insisted on, making me his namesake over my father's objections. "Daniel?" My mother's voice was sharp from the doorway. "Where did you find that?" I turned, holding the briefcase. She looked like she'd seen a ghost. "Mom, what is this?" "Put it back, Daniel. It's nothing. Just old papers from your grandfather." But her hands were shaking, and she was backing away from me like I was holding a bomb. Gordon's heavy footsteps pounded up the stairs. "Eleanor, what's wrong?" He saw the briefcase and his face went from concerned to furious in an instant. Where the hell did that come from? It was hidden behind the dresser, behind a panel someone carved into the wall. Gordon lunged for it, but I pulled back. "Give that to me right now." "No, it has my name on it. I'm your father. You'll do as I say." "I'm 42 years old, Dad. Those days are long gone." Eleanor was crying now, real tears streaming down her face. "Gordon, we should tell him. It's been 20 years." "Tell me what?" Gordon pulled out his phone. "Raymond, you need to get here, now. He found it." My Uncle Raymond lived 10 minutes away, but he made it in 5. He burst through the door like the house was on fire, his lawyer's suit wrinkled, his face flushed. "Daniel, some things are better left buried," he said, trying to sound calm and authoritative. "Your grandfather wasn't the man you thought he was." "Then let me find out for myself." I examined the lock, a 5-digit combination. "What's the code?" "We don't know," Gordon said too quickly. I tried my birth date, nothing. Grandfather Teddy's birth date, nothing. Then a memory surfaced, the day he taught me to ride a bike, tears in his eyes as he let go of the seat. "This is the most important day of my life, Danny boy, July 15th, 1990, the day my grandson learned to fly, 07, 15, and 90. The lock clicked open. Inside the briefcase lay a stack of documents, each one pristine despite 20 years of hiding. On top sat a handwritten letter on my grandfather's personal stationery, his distinctive cursive still bold and clear. Beneath it were legal documents bearing official seals, bank statements with numbers that made my head spin, and ownership papers for Harwick Industries, the manufacturing empire my grandfather had built from nothing. I picked up the letter with trembling hands and began reading aloud while my family watched like statues. My dear Danny, if you're reading this, then your parents have finally failed to keep their promise. I'm writing this on your 5th birthday, watching you play in the garden with the toy trucks I gave you, knowing I won't live to see you grow into the man I know you'll become. My mother sobbed. Gordon's face was stone. I leave my entire estate, all holdings in Harwick Industries, and my personal fortune to my grandson, Daniel Theodore Harwick, to be transferred upon his 21st birthday. Current valuation stands at $100 million, though I expect it to grow considerably. If my son Gordon contests this will, he forfeits his position at the company and his pension. The room erupted. That company was mine. Gordon slammed his fist on my old desk, making the trophies jump. I worked there for 15 years. I earned that position. You embezzled from it for 15 years, Eleanor snapped back, the truth finally spilling out like water through a broken dam. Teddy found out a week before he died. He had the accountants run a full audit. You stole over $200,000, Gordon. I looked between my parents, the floor seeming to tilt beneath me. He stole from Grandpa? Raymond cleared his throat, his lawyer's composure cracking. Your grandfather came to me privately after discovering the theft. He wanted to protect the family from scandal, but couldn't let Gordon inherit the company. So he changed his will, leaving everything to you. When Teddy died of a heart attack the next week, Gordon convinced us that hiding the will was best for everyone. Best for everyone? My voice was rising now. I've been struggling for 20 years. Do you have any idea what my life has been like? You were 21, Gordon said coldly. You just dropped out of college because you got that girl pregnant. You would have squandered everything. That girl was my wife. Those pregnancies were your grandchildren, and I dropped out to work 3 jobs to support them because I had nothing. Because you made sure I had nothing. I kept reading from the grandfather's letter. I've also established educational trusts for any children Danny may have. No child of his should ever want for education or opportunity. My kids, I said, the realization hitting me. My kids had trust funds this whole time, while I was working double shifts to pay for Trevor's baseball uniform, while Veronica left me because I couldn't provide for them. Eleanor couldn't meet my eyes. We were going to tell you eventually, but then you got married so young, had kids so fast. Gordon said you weren't ready. Then when Veronica left, you were so angry at the world. I was living in my car after the divorce. The words tore out of me. For 3 months, I showered at the gym and ate at soup kitchens. My kids think I'm a failure. Veronica is marrying another man because I couldn't give them a decent life. You never told us things were that bad, Raymond said weakly. Would it have mattered? You watched me struggle. You all watched. Every Christmas when I showed up with dollar store presents for my kids. Every family dinner where I ordered water because I couldn't afford anything else. You knew exactly how bad things were. I pulled out my phone and started recording. Say it again, Dad, all of it. Tell me again why you stole $100 million from your own son. Gordon lunged for my phone, but I stepped back. You record nothing. I'm recording everything. Uncle Raymond, you're a lawyer. Is this will legally binding? Raymond's shoulders sagged. Yes, it's completely valid, witnessed, notarized, filed with the state. We told everyone you were unreachable, then later that you died. You told people I was dead? Just business associates, the board of directors at Harwick Industries. We needed to prevent questions about succession. I gathered all the documents, my hands steady now despite the rage building in my chest. You stole my life. You stole my children's future. You let my marriage collapse. You watched me break my back on construction sites while you sat on millions that belonged to me." "Where are you going?" Eleanor asked as I headed for the Dagur. "To take back what's mine. And if any of you try to stop me, I'll make sure everyone knows exactly what you did. Prison time for embezzlement, fraud, forgery. I bet the local papers would love this story. Respected bank manager Gordon Harwick. Beloved teacher Eleanor Harwick. Successful lawyer Raymond Harwick. All common thieves." Gordon's face went purple. "You wouldn't dare disgrace this family. You disgraced this family 20 years ago. I'm just going to make sure you finally pay for it." Monday morning, I called Harwick Industries from my truck parked outside their Manhattan headquarters. The building stretched 40 stories into the sky, glass and steel with my grandfather's name still etched in marble above the entrance. I'd driven past it 100 times doing construction jobs nearby, never knowing it should have been mine. "Harwick Industries, how may I direct your call?" "I need to speak with Wallace Sterling, the CEO. Tell him Daniel Theodore Harwick is calling about his inheritance." The silence lasted 5 seconds. "Please hold." Within 30 seconds, a different voice came on. "Mr. Harwick, this is Wallace Sterling. My God. Teddy told me you'd eventually find out. I've been waiting 20 years for this call." "You knew about me?" "Your grandfather was my mentor. Before he died, he told me his grandson would one day come to claim what was his. He said you'd been kept from it, but that truth always surfaces. Where have you been? Your family told us you died in a car accident in 2005. They told you I was dead? Your Uncle Raymond provided a death certificate. We've been in litigation with various parties trying to claim the estate ever since. The Blackwood family in particular has been relentless." My blood went cold. Preston Blackwood? His father, initially. Marcus Blackwood tried to hostile takeover us 3 times, insisting the Harwick heir was dead and the company should be dissolved and sold. When that failed, his son Preston took a different approach, started investigating any possible living heirs. He found out about your children 18 months ago. The pieces clicked into place like a punch to the gut. He knew who I was. He targeted Veronica specifically. The Blackwoods have been circling Harwick Industries like vultures. If Preston married your ex-wife and adopted your children, they'd have a claim as Teddy's great-grandchildren. With you supposedly dead, they'd be the only living heirs. I need to see you immediately. I'll clear my schedule, and Mr. Harwick, bring every document you have. We'll need our legal team to verify everything. But if you're really Teddy's grandson, you're about to become CEO of a company now worth approximately $400 million. 3 hours later, I sat in a boardroom that could have held my entire apartment, surrounded by lawyers who kept calling me Mr. Harwick with reverence. Wallace Sterling, a distinguished man in his 70s, had tears in his eyes as he shook my hand. "You look just like him. Same eyes, same stubborn jaw. Teddy would be so proud." The forensic accountant they brought in was brilliant and ruthless. Within 2 hours, she'd traced Gordon's embezzlement over 20 years. $3 million. Systematically transferred through shell accounts in the Cayman Islands. Your father's been living off your inheritance while maintaining the fiction of a modest retirement. Can we prove it? Every penny. He was sloppy, probably thought no one would ever look. That afternoon, I returned to my parents' house with a full legal team. Gordon answered the door and tried to slam it shut, but one of the lawyers put his foot in the way. "Gordon Harwick, you're being sued for embezzlement, fraud, and conspiracy to commit inheritance theft. You can cooperate, or we can involve federal prosecutors." My mother collapsed on the sofa. Raymond showed up within minutes, his face ashen as he read through the lawsuit. "This is criminal prosecution territory," he said quietly. "We could all go to prison." "Then let's make a deal," I said. "Sign over everything you stole, every penny with interest, and I'll consider not pressing criminal charges. You have 1 hour to decide." While they panicked and argued, I drove to Preston Blackwood's penthouse. The doorman tried to stop me, but I showed him my new business card. Daniel T. Harwick, CEO, Harwick Industries. Mr. Blackwood is expecting me, I lied. The elevator to the penthouse played classical music. When the doors opened, Veronica stood there in designer loungewear, a glass of wine in her hand. Daniel, what are you doing here? You can't just show up. Preston has security. Call him. Tell him the CEO of Harwick Industries wants to discuss his father's illegal takeover attempts. She laughed. Very funny. Did you day drink at a construction site? Preston appeared from his study, his face shifting from annoyance to shock as he saw me. You're supposed to be dead. Disappointed. Your plan failed, Preston. 20 years of your family trying to steal my grandfather's company, and it all ends today. What plan? Veronica looked between us, confused. Tell her, Preston. Tell her how you researched me 18 months ago. How you knew exactly who I was when you accidentally met her at that charity gala. How marrying her and adopting my children was your backup plan to claim Harwick Industries. Preston's composed mask finally cracked. You can't prove anything. I don't have to. The FBI will when they investigate your father's attempted hostile takeovers and fraudulent claims that I was dead. Did you file false documents too, Preston? That's federal crime territory. Meredith and Trevor ran into the room, stopping short when they saw me. Dad, what are you doing here? Just handling some business, kids. Turns out your dad's not quite the failure everyone thought he was. 6 months later, I stood in the boardroom of Harwick Industries, looking out at the Manhattan skyline from the 40th floor. The same buildings I'd helped construct from the ground up now spread before me like a map of my old life. My kids were with me. Meredith organizing my desk with the same meticulous care she applied to her homework, Trevor spinning in the conference room chairs until he was dizzy. Dad, this view is insane, Trevor said, pressing his face against the window. You can see all the way to Brooklyn. I can see the construction site where I used to work, I told him, pointing to a half-finished tower in Queens. Laid the foundation myself last year. The transformation had been swift but brutal. Gordon and Eleanor now lived in a one-bedroom apartment in Florida, their assets frozen pending the criminal investigation. Gordon would serve 5 years in federal prison for embezzlement and fraud starting next month. Eleanor sent letters I didn't open, each envelope marked with the same Florida Retirement Community return address. Raymond lost his law license immediately. The Bar Association doesn't look kindly on lawyers who forge death certificates and steal inheritances. Last I heard, he was working as a paralegal in Buffalo, making $30,000 a year and living in a studio apartment above a Chinese restaurant. Veronica's wedding to Preston never happened. The FBI arrested him 2 weeks after our confrontation for conspiracy, fraud, and racketeering. Turns out the Blackwood family had been pulling similar schemes for years, targeting inherited wealth through marriage and adoption. Preston was looking at 15 to 20 years in federal prison. I always loved you, Daniel, Veronica had said when she showed up at my office uninvited. The money, Preston, none of it mattered. We could try again. You're right, the money didn't matter, I replied. What mattered was that when things got hard, you didn't just leave. You tried to erase me from our children's lives. You told them they needed a real father because I couldn't buy them expensive things. I was trying to give them a better life. No, you were trying to give yourself a better life. There's a difference. She left crying, but I didn't follow. Some bridges were meant to stay burned. The sweetest vindication came from my kids. They chose to live with me full-time, not in Grandfather Teddy's restored estate in Connecticut that I'd initially considered, but in a brownstone in Brooklyn. Nice, but not ostentatious, with a backyard where we could throw a baseball and a kitchen where we actually cooked dinner together. Dad, Meredith said one evening while helping me make spaghetti, Mom was wrong about needing a different father. You were already perfect, you just didn't know you were rich. Being rich doesn't make someone a good father, Mare. No, but you were a good father when you had nothing. Remember when you saved for 3 months to buy me that art set? You ate peanut butter, sandwiches for lunch every day. Mom told me later after she realized what she'd done. Trevor added his own perspective. You're actually cooler now that you don't have to worry about money all the time. You smile more. But you were already the coolest when you taught me to throw a curveball in that tiny park near your old apartment. I'd established trust funds for both kids, but with conditions my grandfather would have appreciated. They couldn't access the money until they'd worked for 5 years in any job of their choosing. Real wealth, I told them, is understanding the value of work before you understand the value of money. Wallace Sterling became my mentor, just as my grandfather had been his. He taught me the business, but more importantly, he shared stories about Teddy I'd never heard. Your grandfather talked about you constantly, he said. He'd be heartbroken about what your parents did, but proud of the man you became despite it. Every month, I visit Grandfather Teddy's grave with my children. Fresh flowers are always there when we arrive, and the groundskeeper told me why. Mr. Sterling comes every week, says he promised someone named Teddy he'd keep watching over something precious. On our last visit, Meredith asked the question I'd been waiting for. Dad, are you going to forgive Grandma Eleanor and Grandpa Gordon? I thought about it while arranging the flowers we'd brought. Forgiveness isn't forgetting, Mer, but Grandpa Teddy would probably want me to try, maybe someday. What about us? Trevor asked. Would you forgive us if we did something really bad? There's nothing you could do that would stop me from loving you. Nothing. Even if you hurt me, even if you disappointed me, you'd still be my kids. That never changes. The story could end with me as a bitter millionaire who got his revenge. But that's not what happened. Instead, I learned that finding hidden treasure sometimes means losing the family you thought you had while discovering the family you were meant to build. My grandfather's real gift wasn't the money. It was the chance to become the man he always believed I could be. Some people inherit fortunes, some inherit problems. I inherited both, and somehow that made all the difference. If this story resonated with you, if you've ever felt betrayed by family or underestimated by those who should believe in you, please hit that like button below. Share this video with someone who needs to hear that their current struggles don't define their future worth. And don't forget to subscribe to our channel for more incredible true stories of redemption, justice, and the unbreakable bonds between parents and children. Your support helps us bring these important stories to light. Thank you for watching, and remember, sometimes the greatest inheritances aren't measured in dollars, but in the strength we find to rebuild when everything falls apart.